New Deep Dive.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a direct shortcut into what feels like a real-time global affairs briefing. The date on the tin is July 5, 2025.
Right.
Our mission, as always, is to give you that well-informed edge. We'll be sifting through, the noise, unpacking these diverse headlines, everything from truly heartbreaking natural disasters to complex geopolitical shifts, and pulling out the most important nuggets of insight for you. So yeah, let's unpack this.
It's true. The global picture shifts so quickly, doesn't it? It demands our attention on so many different fronts all at once.
Yeah.
And it's not just about these isolated headlines either. It's fascinating how each piece kind of informs the larger puzzle. You see how interconnected everything is.
Definitely.
And to start, we're diving into a truly significant and, frankly, deeply concerning natural event that's unfolded in the United States.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting and, as you said, quite devastating. We begin with a truly heartbreaking situation unfolding right in the heart of Texas.
Central Texas, yeah.
Catastrophic floods have just swept through Central Texas, leaving this immense trail of destruction and, sorrow. We're looking at a confirmed human toll of at least 32 victims so far.
Oh, terrible.
And the numbers are just tragic. 18 adults and 14 children have tragically lost their lives.
And the cause of this devastation is almost beyond belief. The Guadalupe River rose an astonishing 22 feet.
22 feet.
In just 2 hours. This isn't just heavy rain. This is a terrifying example of Central Texas's unique geography, flash flood alley.
Right.
All that heavy rain on the limestone bedrock just funnels water incredibly quickly into these steep, narrow riverbeds. It creates this almost instant, overwhelming force.
Wow.
It's a dynamic that leads to these incredibly rapid and dangerous surges.
22 feet in 2 hours. You just try to imagine that force, that wall of water. It's almost unimaginable.
It really is.
And the situation is still incredibly active, isn't it? Search efforts are still ongoing for 27 missing girls who were at a summer camp in the area.
Yeah. That's just awful to think about. Still ongoing.
Such a deeply concerning aspect of this tragedy. But, amidst the sheer scale of the devastation, we are hearing these remarkable stories of resilience, too, and incredible rescue efforts. Over 230 people have been saved, including, get this, one young woman who was found a staggering 12 miles downstream after being swept away.
12 miles.
12 miles. That just speaks volumes about the power of that current.
Absolutely incredible she survived that.
And the scale of the physical destruction, it's immense.
Yeah.
Mobile homes, holiday cabins, literally completely washed away. It's truly a scene of widespread, almost total damage in places.
That sense of extreme, unpredictable force, of systems just being tested to their absolute limits. It feels like a theme that's echoing across the globe, not just in nature.
That's a good point.
And it really does underscore the increasing vulnerability of communities to these extreme weather patterns. But it's not just about the immediate devastation. It's also about the critical importance of, robust emergency response systems and infrastructure that can actually withstand such forces. But as you pointed out with that 12-mile statistic, the sheer magnitude of these events often pushes beyond even the most robust preparations.
Yeah, absolutely.
It forces us to rethink not just how we respond, but maybe where and how we build altogether, given, the changing climate patterns.
That's a really crucial point. And that sense of vulnerability of systems being tested, it does seem to be a recurring theme, doesn't it? Not just with natural forces, but also in the political arena.
Yeah.
Like over in the UK, Keir Starmer's Labour government seems to be facing its own kind of political deluge in its first year.
Deluge is a good word for it.
It hasn't been smooth sailing at all, from the sounds of it.
No, they're a year in, and that initial maybe optimism has definitely given way to some significant controversy. The political honeymoon, if there ever really was one, it's certainly over.
It sounds like it. Internal criticism seems pretty rampant. We're seeing reports of mayors expressing serious concerns about what they're calling organizational chaos within the government. And members of parliament, MPs, are complaining loudly about unfulfilled promises. That old chestnut.
Yeah, and on the fiscal front, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has even hinted at potential tax hikes in the upcoming autumn budget.
Yeah.
Which is never popular.
No.
And this comes after the government dramatically withdrew from a key benefit reform package.
Right, and that withdrawal, that left a pretty big hole, didn't it?
It did. A substantial $5.5 billion hole in the autumn budget. And, just to clarify for you, this benefit reform, It was this controversial plan
Mm-hmm.
to streamline and cap several welfare payments. It was designed to save money, obviously, but it sparked widespread protest over its potential impact on, well, vulnerable families.
Okay.
So while pulling back might have been politically smart in the short term, that decision immediately tied Chancellor Reeves' hands, didn't it?
Yeah.
It narrowed her fiscal options down to either a politically unpopular tax increases or deep cuts somewhere else instead of maybe a more structural economic recalibration.
So Rachel Reeves is looking at tax hikes. It sounds like a classic case of no good options left for the chancellor, really.
Precisely. It's like being handed a car with an empty fuel tank
Yeah.
and being told to win a race.
Yeah.
You're starting from a significant disadvantage, right? And every decision feels like a compromise.
Yeah. And adding to the turbulence, there's this other issue. Reform UK MP James McMurdoch has been suspended from his party.
That's right. Due to serious allegations of financial abuse dating back to the pandemic era.
You know, what's particularly striking about that McMurdoch case, beyond the immediate scandal, is how it highlights this ongoing shadow of the pandemic era.
It's lingering.
Still affecting trust in public figures years later, it almost feels like the government can't quite escape the baggage of that time, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And when you combine that with the internal criticism and this big budget hole, it just creates a perfect storm of political instability right at the start of their term.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just, a tough first year.
Hmm.
It feels like it could be a potential blueprint for future governments facing a more scrutinizing, maybe less forgiving electorate.
Where delivery is expected almost instantly.
Exactly. The expectations are so high, and the room for error, or even just for dealing with inherited problems, seems to be shrinking all the time.
That's a really insightful point about a new political blueprint. Now, staying in the UK for a moment, there's this highly contentious development concerning a group known as Palestine Action.
Right.
The UK has officially designated Palestine Action as a terrorist organization, a move that, unsurprisingly, has immediately sparked significant reactions.
Big reactions.
Following the ban, more than 20 arrests were made during a protest right there in London.
Yeah, this decision really puts the spotlight on that fraught intersection of national security and protest rights.
Definitely.
Palestine Action, they have a history of directly targeting arms companies through, well, direct action. They even tried a legal challenge to delay the ban, but that failed in the courts.
So this wasn't just a sudden decision. There's a history here. And apparently what accelerated the government's decision was an incident at RAF Bryce Norton.
That's the report suggests, yeah. Activists damaged planes there.
Okay.
And that action seems to have been a kind of tipping point for the government, pushed them to act more swiftly.
Right.
However, this ban, it's been deeply polarizing. Not everyone agrees with the government's approach, of course.
Naturally.
MP Zara Sultana, for example, she's openly criticized the move. She likened the ban to suppressing anti-war protests.
Wow.
Her argument basically is that by labeling a group like Palestine Action as terrorist, you risk stifling legitimate dissent and the right to protest against perceived injustices, even if some of their tactics are, controversial.
That's a really stark comparison, equating it to suppressing anti-war protests. It definitely speaks to the deep division this creates. It sounds like the core issue here isn't just the group's specific actions, maybe, but how a government defines what constitutes a threat versus what falls under the umbrella of, let's say, legitimate activism.
Exactly. It's all about how governments draw those lines. And those lines are almost always subjective, aren't they? And open to very different interpretations depending on your political viewpoint.
Yeah.
And our role here, of course, is just to impartially convey these various viewpoints that are presented in the source material. Because understanding the different perspectives is really key to grasping the full complexity of this decision.
Absolutely. Okay, now, let's turn our attention to the incredibly delicate ongoing negotiations on the world stage, the ceasefire talks in Gaza.
Right. A very difficult situation.
There's been some movement, apparently, but it remains an agonizingly difficult path forward. Hamas has given what's described as a positive response to the U.S.'s 60-day ceasefire proposal.
A positive response.
But, and it's a big but, they're demanding changes to the terms.
Yet this positive response from Hamas is maybe a small crack of light. But the devil, as always, is in those changes.
Always.
The plan itself, it's broadly supported by President Trump, which gives it significant international backing. However,
Israel hasn't publicly responded yet.
exactly. Israel has not yet publicly responded to this specific proposal, which creates a critical pause, a kind of limbo in the momentum.
And one of the major hurdles, it seems, continues to be Israel's demand for Hamas disarmament.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sticking point that experts, well, they recognize it as unrealistic, at least in the immediate context of a ceasefire. How do you even begin to bridge that kind of fundamental disagreement?
Well, it's not just a negotiation over terms, is it? It's more like a collision of two fundamentally different, deeply held narratives about security and justice.
Right.
Hamas views its arms as essential for deterrence, for resistance, a non-negotiable aspect of their survival from their perspective,
Yeah.
whereas Israel sees those same arms as a perpetual existential threat to its citizens.
Two completely opposing views.
Totally. This isn't a negotiation over tactics. Really, it's over existential narratives.
Yeah.
And that makes true reconciliation incredibly elusive without some kind of third-party framework that addresses these really deep-seated fears on both sides.
Yeah.
That's what makes this so profoundly difficult.
And while these complex negotiations just drag on, the human cost of this conflict has been absolutely devastating since October 2023. Over 57,000 victims recorded.
Just staggering numbers.
It's such a stark reminder of the urgent, desperate need for these discussions to actually succeed, even if the path seems almost impossible right now.
That human toll is the undeniable, tragic backdrop to all these diplomatic efforts, isn't it? It highlights the immense difficulty of achieving any lasting peace when the fundamental demands from both sides appear, well, irreconcilable.
Yeah.
The situation just underscores the profound challenges faced by mediators trying to bridge such deep divides, because the very definition of peace or security is so different for each side.
And lives hang in the balance.
Exactly. Lives hang in the balance with every stalled conversation.
Okay, stepping away from those geopolitical tensions for a moment, let's try to celebrate community and diversity, while still acknowledging some underlying complexities, of course.
Right.
Thousands of people recently took part in the annual Pride in London parade, a massive event, apparently, with over 500 LGBTQI plus groups joining in.
It truly was a powerful celebration of diversity, yeah. Drew huge crowds, showcased the vibrancy of the community. It's such an established tradition, isn't it? A real beacon of inclusivity for many.
It definitely sounds like it. But despite that outward success, the event actually faced some significant organizational hurdles behind the scenes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the sources mention challenges like smaller sponsor funds and a lack of volunteers.
That's the practicalities.
Exactly. And these issues, unfortunately, even led to the cancellation of some Pride events in other UK cities. So while London celebrated, other communities faced disappointments.
That's a really important insight, actually, because it shows how these large-scale public events, while, celebrating progress in community, also reveal the ongoing challenges faced by community organizations.
Sure.
Even for really well-established traditions like Pride, securing consistent funding and enough volunteer support remains a critical and sometimes really difficult task.
Yeah.
It speaks to maybe a broader shift in how grassroots movements sustain themselves in an increasingly commercialized and sometimes maybe fatigued public sphere.
That's interesting.
It's a reminder that even the most visible celebrations rely on immense behind-the-scenes effort and ongoing, often challenging resource management.
That's a really good point, the unseen challenges behind the visible celebration. Okay, finally, a quick but important look at something that touches on, everyday safety and travel. Brings it close to home for many of us.
Right.
There was an incident at Palma de Mallorca airport involving a Ryanair plane. Apparently, a false fire alarm on board caused widespread panic among passengers,
Oh, dear.
resulting in 18 injuries during the evacuation.
18 injuries from a false alarm. Wow. This incident immediately puts crisis protocols and passenger safety under the microscope, doesn't it?
Yes, dude.
Rescue services reacted quickly, which is, reassuring.
Yeah.
But the fact that 18 people were injured during the evacuation highlights how quickly a false alarm can escalate into a real safety concern just due to passenger behavior under duress.
It really does. It sounds like the panic itself caused more harm than the actual, non-existent threat in this case.
Seems like it.
And this incident is now under investigation, and apparently it has sparked discussions about safety procedures on board budget airlines. So it's not just about Ryanair specifically, but perhaps broader questions about that balance between efficiency and safety margins.
Exactly. It raises a critical question about that balance, doesn't it? Between operational efficiency, which budget airlines obviously prioritize, and the robustness of safety procedures, including how passengers are managed during emergencies. It's a reminder that even routine travel can have these unexpected moments that challenge our assumptions about preparedness. Not just for the airlines, but for passengers too, and their understanding of safety briefings.
Good point.
It's a critical area for ongoing review and improvement across the entire industry, really, regardless of the airline's model.
So what does this all mean for you as we wrap up this deep dive into the Global Affairs briefing for July 5, 2025? We've covered such a wide range today, haven't we?
We really have.
From those devastating, geographically specific natural disasters in Texas, through the turbulent political shifts and policy dilemmas in the UK,
The Labour government's challenges.
the complexities of international conflict in Gaza, the ongoing resilience, but also the organizational challenges of social movements like Pride in London,
Right.
and even that moment that made us think critically about everyday travel safety.
What truly stands out from this briefing, for me anyway, is the sheer interconnectedness of our world, and just how rapidly these events unfold and impact each other. From a river rising catastrophically in Texas to a very specific political decision in London about an activist group, or a fraught negotiation over a ceasefire in Gaza. These events aren't isolated, are they?
Not at all.
They shape our collective reality. They often reveal deeper structural issues or ongoing human challenges. It just underscores that vigilance and critical thinking are not just useful, they are absolutely essential as we navigate this constantly shifting global landscape.
And here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. Given the rapid pace and complex interconnectedness of all these global developments we've just discussed, how do you prioritize what information to absorb, and what tools do you use to make sense of the, frankly, overwhelming flow of news and decide what truly matters?
A good question.
Something to consider. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Subscribe. New Deep Dive.